Hello and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Alfonso Peluso and I'm a Studio Associate Professor in the College of Architecture at IIT, the home of the legendary Mies van der Rohe, and I'm adjunct faculty at Columbia College Chicago in the Interior Architecture program. Shout out to all my students. I hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful sunny day at the end of summer here in Chicago, and the weather's nice. I hope the weather is nice where you are as well. All right, today we're going to look at surface milling with a CNC. So what will we end up with in the end? Well, here, if I zoom in, you see a rough pass. So we're going to be doing rough passes and finishing passes. So when you look at this rough pass, you'll see it's a little rough. And if I go to a finish, that's a finish number 1. And then this is a finish number 2, which is much cleaner. All right. Before we jump into the tutorial, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead and search me up on YouTube. Click on subscribe. Click on the bell to receive all the notifications. There's something there for everyone. My latest series is a CNC series, which I'm finishing up today with CNC surfacing, but there's something there for everyone, from Grasshopper to Rhino to AutoCAD to Photoshop to Revit, so something for everyone. I'm looking to get to 10,000 subscribers soon, so that's my next big milestone. I hope you can help me get there by subscribing. Also, hook up with me on Instagram at my first name Alfonso _ my last name Peluso. Looking to get to 2,000 followers pretty soon. That's my new milestone. I hope you'll help me get there. See what I'm up to with my students. See what videos I'm putting out. My family and I went on a road trip to New York this past summer, so that was pretty cool. You can check out and see what we saw. All right. So surface milling. So I did a search for a close-up of bone, and I found this really cool image here. And this is the image I'm using. I'm actually going to make this image black and white. So this height fields that we're going to see works best when the image is black and white. So I turn that in Photoshop. I just turn that to a black and white image by going to image mode and turning it to grayscale. All right. So let's just start over from scratch. So I'm going to make a new file. And we're going to work in small objects inches. Okay, I'm going to work in my perspective view. Alright, I'm going to go to DOC and set up the grid. So type in DOC and I'm going to make my grid line 12. And my minor grid lines are going to be every 1 inch. And my major grid lines can be every 4 minor. And my snap spacing can be 1. Okay, so we're going to work with a stock that's 12 by 8. So I'm going to make a new layer called stock. And I'm going to make this stock, I'm going to type in rectangle, and I'm going to snap to 0, 0, 0. Let me turn my grid snap on. And I'm going to make this 12, 8. Okay. And I'm thinking that this is going to be MDF that we're going to mill, and so medium density fiberboard. It's going to be not actual, but nominal 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take this and copy vertical equal yes, point to copy from, and I'm going to drag downward, and I'm going to say 0.75 inch. Okay. And I'm just going to take some measurements just to make sure that that's 0.75. Yes, it is. This is 8. And this is 12. You always want to start out with the right measurements to begin with. Okay, 12 by 8 by 0.75. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my default layer current. And I'm going to type in height field. And I'm going to browse for my image. So here's my black and white image. Just so you guys can see that. There's the black and white version of it. Okay. First corner, I'm picking the lower left and the lower right. So number of samples, 20 by 20. That's fine. If I want it to be more, if I wanted to have more samples, which means more hills and more valleys, I would increase this value. The height of the overall image I can set to 1. You'll see I'm going to be scaling that down. And I'll click OK. Alright, let me change this to be shaded. Okay, so here you see that. So I want to set this inside of the two red rectangles that we drew in the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to type in bounding box. Enter a few times. And I'm going to take the bounding box and the surface and move the bounding box down to the bottom of the red. And then I'm also going to scale at 1D. So I'm going to type in SCALE 1D, scale one direction or one dimension, and I'm going to pick this as a reference and scale it down to the top of the red line. Okay, so that's my height. I have my height scaled correctly. It's still falling outside of the red rectangle. So I'm going to type in scale 1D again. And I'm going to pick from origin to the end of the bounding box to the red rectangle. Okay, I'm going to delete that bounding box. It's important that I delete it. It's not something I want to hide. When I'm milling surfaces, I can't have more than one piece of 3D geometry, meaning I can't have more than the surface in 3D, or else it will mess up the RhinoCam milling G code. So I can only have one surface. Alright, so we have one surface there. Alright, so now we're ready to get going. Alright, so my machine is a 3-axis. My post, this is just a post that we're using at IIT because it has a shop saber. So you would use whatever post for your particular CNC machine. You would use that. Stock, I'll double click on stock. And let's make sure my stock is in the right place here. So let's go ahead and say copy model bounding box. Okay. That puts it at the right height. So if you ever see your stock is bigger or outside of the area that you're working in, just make sure that you go ahead and click on copy model bounding box. Okay. All right. Just want to check one thing here. Alright, so this is above 0. So I want to move this down. I'm going to move this down 0.75. Okay, and let's reset our stock. So I'm go ahead and reset my stock. Okay, perfect. I always work with the top of my surface. I always work with the top of my surface at 0. Okay, so that's at 0. Alright, perfect. And if I go back into my stock, coordinates are 0, 0, negative 0.75. That's because this is picking the bottom left-hand corner. So that's negative 0.75. Dimensions are 12 by 8 by 0.75. Okay, perfect. Alright, now that's set up. I'm going to go ahead and set up my first machining operation. So if I go to the down arrow for machining operation, I'm going to go to 3-axis advance, and I'm going to choose parallel finishing. Now even though it says parallel finishing, I'm going to set it up to be a parallel roughing based on the settings that I put in. Okay, so I haven't set any control geometry. I'm going to come back and set the region that I want to mill in. So we'll come back for that. So I don't set anything here. It automatically finds the surface, so that's why it's important to have only one surface, because it's going to find it automatically. I'm going to go over to Tool, Edit, Create, Select Tool, and we're going to use a ball end mill. And that ball end mill is going to be 0.25, so 1/4 inch diameter. And my shake diameter can also be 0.25. Okay, I'm going to change the length. So my tool length, which is my overall length here, that's going to be my largest value. So my tool length, I'm going to put in 1.5. My shoulder length, so my next largest value, I'm going to put in 1. And then my flute length will be my shortest value. I'm going to put in 0.75. Okay. Okay. I'm going to click on Save as New Tool, Save Edits to Tool, and click OK. A lot of times you have to do it in that order. Save as New Tool, Save Edits to Tool, click OK. If you get an algorithmic error, try that. Try Save as New Tool, Save Edits to Tool, and click OK. Okay, feeds and speeds. So the speed of the spindle is going to be 16,000. And then plunge, approach, and engage are all going to be 100. Cut, retract, and departure, we're going to set that to 200. And you'll see that we're going to be able to go faster on our finished pass, but this is our rough pass, so that's fast enough. Go over to clearance plane. So I'm going to use absolute Z value. Okay, usually the default is stock max plus a distance. I'm using absolute Z value, and I can raise. So if I raised it that high, that would really slow down the milling of it. I can raise and lower this. Okay, so I'm going to use 0.05, so just above it by 0.05 of an inch. And then my cut transfer method, I'm going to use skim. Okay, so it just skims over the top. It doesn't use the clearance plane, so it's even less than the 0.05. It just skims right over the top of the material. Okay, go up to cut parameters. So it's important with the stock, since we're doing a rough pass and a finished pass, it's important that I leave some stock material so that the finished pass has something to take away, or else we won't see anything on the finished pass. So I'm going to make this 0.02 inch. So it's going to leave 0.02 inch of material that's going to be taken away by the finished pass. Okay, so step over. What do I want to step over? So typically I want to step over half of my tool diameter, but I'm not going to type that in because there may be a chance that I typed in the wrong value for my tool diameter. So I'm not going to use % of tool diameter. I'm going to go to distance, and so my tool diameter was 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so I'm going to make this 1/8, and then I can click on this little bubble and it'll make it 0.125. Alright, so 0.125 is my step over, and we'll see that in the preview. Okay, my Z containment, now this is my step down. How do I want to step down? Well, I want to insert multiple step down Z cuts, and again I want it to be 50% of my diameter, but just in case I typed in the tool diameter wrong, I'm going to use distance. So I'm going to make this 0.125. Okay, entry exit can be default, advanced cut parameters default, sorting can be default. I'll go ahead and generate this. Alright, now at the bottom of my screen, there's toolpath visibility, so that was turned off. So there is stock visibility, there's material texture visibility, there's toolpath visibility, there's toolpath hidden areas display. So there's a whole bunch of display settings that you can turn off. In this case, I'm going to turn off the toolpath levels. So that would turn off the red lines, the toolpath levels. Okay. So let's go ahead and simulate. My computer's freaking out a little bit with this. Close that. Okay. Turn those off. Alright, doesn't want to turn them off. I'm missing something there. So, alright, let's simulate. So I'm going to right click and simulate. It's on full fast speed mode. I'm not sure how many step downs it's going to do. Okay, I just turned off the toolpath altogether. Alright, so you see that it looks pretty good. It is rough, however. You can see the roughness to this. If you did want a surface that looks rough, then you'd be done. Okay, so that's going to be our rough. So I'm going to right click and rename this. I'm going to call this rough so I can keep this in the right order. Rough pass is always going to be first. It's always going to be on top. Alright, so let's set up our finish. Now before we do this, I don't want to mill all the way to the outside of the surface, okay, because I'm going to have screws that hold the surface down. So I'm going to set up a region, a containment region. So I'm going to make a layer called region. Make that current. Okay, I'm going to go back to program so I can see my red lines. And I'm going to offset this. I'm going to offset this 3/4 of an inch just for a screw. A 1/2 inch would probably be fine, but I don't want to go that close. So 3/4 of an inch. Offset that inward. Okay, so there's my region. I can go more than that. Let's offset that as an inch. And the reason I'm thinking of going more than that is save a little milling time, because this milling time can take some time when you're milling a surface. So I'm going to offset this in 1 inch. Okay, so there's my curve. I'm going to offset that 1 inch. So what I can do now is I can go into rough here just by double clicking on the little folder, and I can click select curve edge regions, and I can pick that purple line, and I can click generate. So now if I simulate that, it's working just with inside that region, that machining region. So it tells it where to mill. And then there's going to be room left over for screws. And it's reducing the milling time a little bit as well. Alright, so that's drive containment region. Alright, so let's set up a new pass. So I'm going to go over to Program, Machining Operations, 3-axis Advanced, Parallel Finishing. It's remembering the drive region, so that's fine. The tool, it's also remembering the ball mill 1. Let's go over to feeds and speeds. So it didn't remember the feeds and speeds, which is fine. This is going to be 16,000. For the spindle speed, now plunge, approach, and engage, I can go faster now. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to plunge in at 150. 150, 150, and I'm going to cut, retract, and depart at 250. So I'm going a little bit faster. I was doing 200, now I'm going 250 because I'm not taking away as much material. I'm just kind of skimming the surface with this finish pass. Okay, clearance plane. That's the, from leftover. Cut parameters. Okay, so stock, I leave this at 0. I'm not leaving any stock left over. Okay, step over. I'm going to go to distance. And for this step over, I'm going to use, okay, so my end mill diameter was 1/4. So half of that end mill is going to be 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to step over 1/16 of an inch. Okay, click on the little bubble. Z containment. I don't have to do any step downs because I've already done the step downs. That material has already been taken away in the rough pass. There's nothing to step down into. Okay, entry exit can be default, advanced cut parameters default, and sorting default. So go ahead and generate that. I'm going to right click and rename this. I'm going to call this Finish 1. Finish 1. Go ahead and simulate this. Let's try that. Try that again. Okay, so you can see the difference there. So I like to do a couple finish passes because these finish passes, you know, they can take a while. I also like to see what it looks like and say, well, maybe I can sand that. But I'll always add another one in there just in case. And then if it's looking like I want to keep going with it, then I'll keep going with it. All right, so let's add one more finish pass to this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna right click and choose copy, and then I'm gonna right click and choose paste. I'll go ahead and rename this. I'll call this Finish 2. I'm going to change now under cut parameters. I'm going to change the distance of the step over. So I'm going to make this 1/16 of an inch. Click on the little bubble. No, I think I had 1/16 was the last one. And I can double check that. So this is going to be 1/32. Click on the little bubble. Generate that. Just want to check. So my finish 1 under cut parameters, that's 0.0625. Okay, and my finish 2 under cut parameters, that's 0.03125. Okay, let's go ahead and simulate this. So you see it's about half. And again, you really don't know until you mill it into a piece of wood how smooth or not it is. Chances are, if you really want this smooth, you're better off just sanding it. It's going to go a lot faster if you just sand it by hand. But this will give you a good start. Okay, so we can also estimate the time, how long each of these are going to take. So if I go over to Setup, and I click on Setup 1, and I right-click on it, and I go to Information, it's going to give me the machining time for each one of these. So the rough it's saying 36 minutes, and then finish one is 4.21 minutes, and I guess it's seconds. I don't know why I said 0.21. Finish 2 is 8 minutes 32 seconds. So 36, well, yeah, I guess it is point, because this says 86 minutes. 36.86, so I was right to say point. Are these true estimates? You won't really know until you get on the machine, but you can write these down and then see how long it's actually going to take on the machine. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. My head's going to pop up in the upper left. Also, I'll put some links to some other CNC videos in the upper right. So if you like this video, leave me a comment, tell me why you liked it, give me a thumbs up, all that stuff, and I will see you on the next one.